If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in VCB Productions in studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Tyler is not with us today. He's on the road, but we do have another baseball great. But before we get to him, let's introduce, as always at the table, my good friend, the LinkedIn Whisperer, one of the calming forces to our show, John Byers. John's wearing a shirt today that's got bicycles and not baseballs.
Blew it.
You blew that, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. We are the GOAT Consulting Podcast. We serve it up in a way that you can get it. In our 20s, they teach us to get in a game. In our 30s, they teach us to move up in the game. In our 40s, we try to stay in the game because those 30-year-olds are so damn good. In our 50s, what the research says, we finally ask ourselves, what is it that I really want? In sports, GOATs are easy to see. They're recognized for their greatness. They elevate the play of those around them. But in business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. What they do gives them energy, and it gives other people energy and creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. And speaking of energy, there is definitely a new kind of energy with our friend and our guest today in the house, Randy Huth, who led Nolensville.
Yes.
Little League to the promised land, not once but twice, and has an incredible story of baseball and success, not just here nationally, but internationally, all the way with the Shanghai Beavers. And we're excited to have you here today. And
third time's a charm.
I'm going to let John, as Randy, as you say, I'm going to let John blow out smell the roses and blow out the candles. So, John, you do one or the other. Either smell them or blow them out.
Well, I may do some of both. We'll see. But thank you for getting us launched here. Just a little bit about Randy before we turn it over to him. Former Clarksville, Tennessee radio host, business owner. One of my favorite things about him is he was the coach this year, is the last 2 years for our very own Nolensville Little League team and led them to number 2 in the U.S., number 4 in the entire universe, as I would put it. And as Colby mentioned, I mean, no stranger to baseball on his own, has just got plenty of experience. We're going to garner all the pearls of wisdom from him today. One of my favorite things, I'm not on Instagram, but our friend Randy is. And, of course, in doing a little bit of background, I was compelled to tell our audience, number one, follow this guy because he's fantastic. But then also the title on Instagram says, "My life is like magic wrapped in awesome and dipped in chocolate." Bar owner, glass cutter, radio host, entrepreneur, stepdad, and ninja. And yet, I know something about you that's not in that Instagram title, and that is that you are also a very prominent, world-renowned, burnt hand candle maker.
That's true. That's true.
Why is that not in the Instagram title?
I don't know, man. Maybe I need to edit it.
Instead of dipped in chocolate, dipped in wax.
Yeah.
But maybe that touches too close to home.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely a candle maker.
So we're going to talk all about that today. And I feel like the level of just
energy,
good energy, calmness changed. Like as soon as I saw Randy, like at the door, it just was. I can't even describe it. I'm failing completely to describe just the level of anxiety that was released from me.
I mean, in the introduction, when I screwed it up twice, he came over and put his arm around me, and just like talking to a pitcher, which I've never been. I mean, my experience in Little League baseball lasted about 2 games, but I felt that calmness and certainly appreciate that. Now you see the pressure that John puts me under all the time as I got to launch this thing each time.
Randy, it's so good to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I really am happy to be here.
Well, we've got a lot to unpack together today, and before we do, I mean, we feel like there are certain things that give us more insight than all the great insight out there. The fact that you're a ninja and your life is wrapped in awesome and dipped in chocolate. We want to add one more layer of that, or maybe peel back one more layer of the Randy Huth onion, if you will. Give us an idea when you think to your childhood. What's one of your favorite childhood memories?
Oh man, there's so many, but most of mine involve baseball. You know, I love playing Little League baseball. My dad was a coach for all those years.
And where was that?
In Clarksville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So my dad was a Little League coach for over 40 years. So
Wow.
he coached even before I was born. So when I was 3 years old, I used to beg him to go. Could I go to the baseball field with him? And people would always ask me, said, well, what team do you play for? And I was too young to play, and I would say, I don't play, I'm a coach. So at 3 years old, I was already telling people I was a coach.
I love it.
So I'm guessing that without knowing your dad, I'm guessing probably some of what I've described as you coming in here today and what I know of you from the series and the last 2 years, I'm guessing some of that comes from what he's taught you growing up.
All of it. Yeah, all of it. Everything about my baseball career comes from him. So, he passed away in 2018. We actually, that year I was the head coach, and we went to the region and lost in the region to a good team from Georgia that ended up losing to Hawaii in the championship. But while I was at the region, that was when he was real sick and in the hospital, and I got a call that I needed to come home right away. And I said, Dad, there's no way Dad would want me to come home. This is our dream. We're almost there. He passed away 2 weeks after that region tournament ended. I got back home and I got to spend the next 2 weeks talking about that region tournament. But he said, if you'd have come home, I'd have killed you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, most of my memories, my childhood memories are all based around baseball and hanging out with my dad.
So fast forward, and one of the things that we believe is that 80% of life's defining moments happen before age 35. Is there one moment that stands out to you in your career that you say, this is it? This is what set me on the trajectory to be able to do the things that I do?
I don't know if there's one specific thing, but I think seeing my father as he was such a good leader. His thing was he could take a bunch of misfits and make them do good things. Whether it was in his career, he managed Kmart's for 36 years, and he could take all over, and he could take a group of misfits and get them focused on one goal and turn them into something good. And that's kind of what a coach does. Yeah. And that's where all that's derived from is my dad. So. And
what season are you in coaching Little League baseball?
This is my 21st.
21st year. Wow.
Yeah, my 21st. My 20th, I made it to the Little League World Series for the first time, So, before my dad passed away, he said that there were two things. He said, you got to make me two promises. And I said, well, what was that? And the first one, he said, you got to make sure you take care of my mom, which that's a handful. And then the other thing he said is I want my ashes put at the Little League World Series. So,
wow.
So I never thought that I would be able to actually do that. I thought I'd go there as a fan and be able to put, dump the ashes in the grass or something. But at the Little League World Series, I actually called time after the very first pitch of the game on ESPN and went out there and put his ashes on the mound.
This year?
Yeah, both years. Both years I did it.
Wow.
Yeah. This year they did a full story about it. But so I went out there and got to put his ashes on the field. So my dad's part of that field forever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Man, that's so cool. I would imagine that there's probably many lessons that you've gathered, which I think we're going to get more into as our conversation kind of evolves here. Which, by the way, if you, of all the places you can watch, listen to podcasts, if you're watching, you will see that Randy came with gifts. We've got a ball from the series. It looks like it's a used ball.
Yeah, that's a game ball.
And it is signed by the team, which is incredible. Thank you for this. And then even, I don't know which is more cool, but it was some dirt from the field.
That's Lamedy Stadium. That's the Little League Stadium that you've seen for 75 years. You've seen that field on television with some of the greatest moments in baseball history have happened on that field, especially in youth sports. So,
what does this mean to you? Like, I imagine this is so, meaningful for you and with your history, your childhood, your dad's 40 years, your 21 years. I mean,
my little jar of dirt like that is one of my most prized possessions. So that's how much it means to me, and I actually shared it with you. So,
well, when you look at kids from when you first started 21 years ago to today, and you coach those kids, is it is it the same group of kids? Is it the same kind of kids, but just different kids that come through? Or have you seen generational changes? What are the changes you've seen?
There's one thing that really doesn't change, is that 12-year-olds are 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're the same every year. You're out, same problems, same funny,
Yeah.
same energy. You know, the change is with the parents.
Yeah.
That's what's changed.
Ooh, let's talk about
The
that.
parents, the parents, the parents get harder and harder to deal with. And I'm very fortunate that the past 2 years we've had such a good group of parents, and that's what kind of feeds that whole thing. That the train doesn't move without a good set of parents and their commitment level, because you have to get kids all over the place. It is a very expensive, it's a very long commitment. And I've been very fortunate the past 2 years to have a really, really quality two sets of parents.
It can't be a coincidence that the last 2 years in which you have gone to the series and had a great set of parents. There's no coincidence. I mean, obviously, there's so much more to it that has to come together. But that's got to be, as you said, I mean, that feeds the whole thing, right? I mean,
absolutely. I think, the first thing is you got to have a lot of talent. I mean, you got to have kids that can play.
Sure.
But on top of that, you can't just have the best players without the commitment level from their families. And sometimes the best players don't necessarily fit well into a team atmosphere. So you got to put all that together. And when you do, you get something special. And I think that you can see that.
It's like Alabama.
Yeah, well, I knew you'd probably go there.
Are you an Alabama fan?
I'm from Mobile.
They're not current national champions, though. But
That's true.
They have seen that before.
I'm originally from Georgia.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're both Georgia fans.
Yeah.
My oldest has a visit there this weekend, actually.
Which one, Alabama?
No, come on. I told him there are certain places I can't write the check for, and that's probably one of them. So, Randy, let me ask you, one of the ways that we honor our guests is we have all of our guests give us their own definition of a GOAT. And I cannot wait to hear what yours would be. What is your Randy Huth's definition that has built for many, 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 many years, so many experiences? How would you define a GOAT or the greatest of all time?
I think legacy is the main word to think there. And for me, I'm the reason that I coach is to carry on the legacy of my father. It's a tribute to him. But when I think about what my legacy will be is the kids that played for me, how did they become? What kind of people are they now? Did they continue to play baseball because I made them love the game more? Or did they quit the game of baseball because I made them not like it? I want my legacy to be kids to continue to play as long as they could and had fun for as long as they could, whether it was all the way to the professional level or whether it was the year that we were together. And what kind of people they became. So I think if you have a good legacy, that's what the GOAT is.
Well, that goes with what we've always talked about the GOAT, right? I mean, you've taken what you've learned and gathered, and you're making it better, right? And you have not only hopes to make it better, but then perpetuate that onto those that you're coaching and loving on.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people think of the GOAT as a statistical thing because of sports, and I'm part of sports. So, making it 2 years in a row, that does put me in a category of a very, very small fraternity of coaches that have ever made it back-to-back years. There's only been 20 ever. I was the 21st.
Wow.
There's never been a U.S. coach to make it 3 years in a row. So that would definitely statistically put me in a category that's at the very top, which would be an honor, and it would take a lot, and we're going to give it a go, because you never know. But, statistically, I don't know if you could say that I'm the GOAT, but I'm definitely in the category with a bunch of really, really, really high level coaches in Little League.
Yeah, you're definitely in the farm.
Can you share who would your GOAT be? GOAT, it can be a person, it can be a place, it can be a thing. I mean, we've had all kinds of GOATs on the show over the 90 episodes or whatever that we've done.
Yeah.
Who is Randy Huth's GOAT, or what, or when?
Well, as a childhood, my childhood hero, who I thought was the greatest of all time, I'm a huge Atlanta Braves fan, and I thought Dale Murphy was the greatest player of all time.
Amen.
And I hate that he's not in the Hall of Fame. I think that he definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame.
For sure.
Not only because of his stats, he just played 5 years too long. If he'd have quit after the early 90s instead of continuing to play for the Rockies and the Phillies, he would probably be in the Hall of Fame. But his character definitely shines through too. He's such a good guy. And I think that they need more people like him in the Hall of Fame. from a personal aspect, that goes my father.
Sure.
He's the greatest little league coach of all time, and I truly believe that. So,
do you find the way that you build relationships with generations being different, with the way you approached a relationship with a 12-year-old in 2000 versus 2010 versus 2020? Do you see differences in that?
No, because 12-year-olds are 12-year-olds, man. Some of the things change. Video games, TV, computers, cell phones. Now 12-year-olds have cell phones. 10 years ago they didn't have that.
Yeah.
12-year-olds have social media. They have TikToks. They have that kind of stuff. Whether they're supposed to or not, they do.
Sure.
So that's something, and they also have access to more information than they would ever need.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, kids didn't. They didn't have the knowledge of all that's good in the world, but also all that's bad in the world too. So you have to put up with a little bit of that. But they're still 12. They're still 12-year-olds. And my approach is always, I'm not the yelling, I'm not the rah-rah guy. I'm the calm.
Yeah.
I listen to kids.
Yeah.
I talk to them. I have real conversations with them. I don't just point and say go. So I learn about them, and that's always been my strategy, is to get to know the kids and know how each one of them ticks and what makes them tick. And so every one of them is treated different. People always say that you have to treat everybody equally. Well, that's not true.
No, it's
you have to treat everybody fair.
Yeah.
And fair does not always mean equal.
No.
So as long as you're fair, then you can feel good about it at the end of the day. And my way with kids is I listen a lot, for better or for worse. I hear some things that I never want to hear, and I hear some things that make me laugh. I hear some things that make me cry. But I listen a lot to those kids, and I try to give them or fill the gaps, especially in a baseball way, that those kids need, and everybody needs something different.
Well, I think you could very easily translate everything you just said to someone that has, I don't know how you compare that level of success that you've seen, where only 21 ever have done what you've done in business or in relationships and life and many other areas, but it would probably very easily translate in terms of the teams that we're building, which we're going to get more into that as this conversation evolves. But I want to come back to what you asked in terms of the relationship with the kids, because I often have these moments. We've got 4 kids at home, from 17 down to 4, and I often have these moments where I feel like, who's parenting who here?
Yeah, you guys are playing zone defense.
Yeah.
You can't even play man-to-man anymore.
No way. And in a good way, right? Like,
sure.
My oldest sometimes makes us, maybe that's not so much in a good way, who's parenting who. But oftentimes I'll get, when I'm really paying attention, hopefully sometimes, this comes more natural than it does others. But the question I have is, you talked about your relationship with the kids. Like, think about a couple of the moments this year where you had that kind of experience, where you're learning maybe even more than they are in those moments from them than vice versa.
Oh, man, there's some great ones. Off the top of my head, Trent McNeil, T-Rex, the chubby kid with the glasses, that everybody fell in love with. And we're sitting there after he pitched in the World Series. He threw a great game. And if you win, you go to the press conference and you get to take 2 players with you. If you lose, you go to the press conference by yourself as a coach. So it's much more fun when you win. But it's it's a real press conference with people shooting questions at you, that kind of stuff. So it's me. I'm sitting there, and Trent T-Rex is sitting next to me, and they said, "How do you feel about your performance?" And he's, I get emotional just thinking about this. And if you watch the video back, you can see me kind of look like, "Oh my God, this kid is only 12." But he said, a lot of kids that look like me don't think that they can go out and do this because I don't look like a typical athlete.
I love it.
He said, but I just want to show that if you work hard and you believe in yourself, you can do it.
Wow.
And he's right. He's the nerdy kid. He's chubby. He's probably been bullied a lot. And at that moment, all those people wanted to be him. People that made fun of him, you want to be that guy.
What a moment.
And for him to say that, in the press conference, you see me, I just look at him like,
what did you say to him after the press conference?
We walked out of the press conference, and I just gave him a hug.
Yeah.
What else can you do? I mean,
also, when I pulled him out of that game, I don't know if you remember that game, but I went to take him out of the game because he was at a pitch limit, and he looked at me and he said, "Coach, out of all the things in the world he could have said, in a real close game. This is the first game of the entire. We were the opening game of the United States side.
Oh wow!
There's 25,000 people there. There's over 1 million people watching this on TV. Okay, and the one thing he says is, "Coach, do you think I can keep the game ball?" And it just remember they're 12.
They're 12.
And I looked at him and I just said, absolutely.
Yes. You can't keep the game ball.
I said, I love you, T-Rex. Give me a hug. And we hugged right there on the mound and walked off together. And it was just, you realize, man, that they're 12. They're having fun, but you learn a lot. I mean,
so you know what that took me to, and before we kind of wind down this part of the conversation, you know what it took me to in that moment, and there's probably other moments that you could share, and maybe you will, but it took me to the end of Karate Kid, and where Daniel is in the back room. They've either they are about to, maybe they've about to call the match, and Miyagi tells him, it's okay, like it's fine. You don't have to go do this.
There's nothing left to prove.
And he said, well, do you think I would have won? And Miyagi says, it doesn't matter. And he goes, no, do you think I would have won? And Miyagi says, yes, you would have won, right?
Yeah.
So that was that moment, right? Where it's like he's coming to you, and I'm, could go on about, the 12-year-old boys and the validation they're looking for, certainly from coaches and dads and others in their life. But that kind of moment, and that you are put in a position where you can answer that question for him, is powerful and important.
Yeah, that kid changed my life forever.
That's super cool.
Well, I think it illustrates the power of a coach-athlete relationship, right?
Sure.
I mean, to affirm and validate the worth and potential in him in such a clear way that he sees it for himself. That came from what you put into him throughout that entire process. Stay with us as we continue to talk about legacy and baseball, and two guys from Georgia and one guy from Alabama who wants to continue to talk about legacy and football. I'm Colby Jubenville for John Byers and for Randy Huth. This is the Go Consulting Podcast.
Oh.